nothing to it. Go ahead and bring Goliath on. Ain't no giant, I ain't gon' fire on. Catch a fade, you, I'm warm, I'm gone. Y'all can catch the wave that I am on. I am icon, y'all are wide wrong. Think that I'm more reconcile bonds. Here ain't nothing to it though. This is on me, ain't got much to do with who you know. Keeping it true to from 10 L's into a milli though. But they already knew that those farewell to your opinions. Know that he is this is all me, ain't got much to do with who you know. Yeah, keeping it true to form, but they already knew that, y'all. Here we go.
Well, hey there, and afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and football fans alike here in North Central Ohio, and welcome to the Saturday Pigskin exclusively on the OH Report, brought to you by Spherion, Mid-Ohio. My name is Brian Skowronski, and I got the same gang back with me for week number 2. We got Curt Conrad from the Richland Source, along with Erik Will, Shelby teacher, and then just overall awesome football analyst. So, gentlemen, welcome back. A little bit more normal week 2 than a week 1. I know that you guys have been keeping your peepers on all the games and all the outcomes. Give me just, your overall impressions, what we've seen through 2 weeks.
Fire away.
I'll tell you what, Mansfield Senior defense came alive. I thought they played really well defensively in the game that I covered this week. Offense has a lot of things to work on and improve on going into week 3 against Lexington. I think we finished the show on Monday with some questions as far as like moving forward. How good really is Ontario in that run defense? Well, I think it's pretty good, even though Lucas did get the win. I think Ontario proved that they're probably the best 0-2 team, and I know coaches don't want to hear that and players don't want to hear that, but that's still a compliment. They're a really good football team. I think they just played 2 really good football teams. I think Shelby answered the call this week and their offensive line, and then obviously Owen Fisher. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then how about Worcester? Just doing what they do, continuing to own that OCC until someone knocks them off.
I think that what week 2 has proved to us, and the addition of Lucas has made the Mid-Ohio Athletic Conference a really good football conference. I mean, there's not, and you said it, Ontario's 0-2, Clear Fork's an 0-2 team, and those are really good football teams. And it just seems to me that with the addition of Lucas, that has raised that profile. And it's kind of funny to say that because it's a Division 7 team, but a Division 7 team has raised the profile of the Mid-Ohio Athletic Conference to even a little higher.
No offense to Highland, but can we just keep Lucas in the MOAC moving forward? It's been pretty fun.
I don't think that you would get any objections from anyone at Lucas. It would make a lot more reasonable road trips.
Right, and here's the thing. I think even basketball-wise, they'd be up to. I'm telling you, Lucas has a really nice thing rolling
got some athletes
down there. Yeah.
Some sneaky good athletes over there in Cub Country. All right, guys. Well, let's show you all the moving pictures, the highlights that we captured last night on the gridiron. We'll run them back right now in the run back. We're going to kick things off with a key MOAC matchup, or at least we thought. Shelby at Pleasant, and the Big Fish would make Don Cave Stadium his small pond. 54 yards goes Owen Fisher here. It is 7-0 Whippets, but hold the phone. Answering right back, Austin Schaefer fidget spins his way through a zoo of Whippets defenders. He's going to go 80 yards all the way into the end zone. It was tied up at 7 apiece, but man, what a night for Mr. Owen Fisher. Here he is right now taking the rock, and he is going to swim his way 68 yards to pay dirt this time. He tasted that flavor a whole bunch of times. 7 total touchdowns for Owen, a school record 415 rush yards. I mean, that's a career for a lot of dudes. Whippets roll 54-26. Impressive win, boys.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what, you're talking about setting the school record, 126 years, 407 yards on the ground, 7 touchdowns. Incredible.
River Valley on the road in the Valley, and a fast start here for Luke Rogers. 75 yards, he gets ghost down the sideline, and you see the speed outrunning everybody on the Clear Fork defensive unit. The Colts would respond, though, as we kick things up with Brady Tedrow coming here soon. It was senior night, and he wanted to show out at the Colt Corral. Finds his man, Ethan Staley, 32 yards. We are tied up at 7 apiece, but it would not really ever be close from there. Here's Dylan Johnson, short touchdown grab as the Vikings are going to reclaim the lead 14-7 here. And their sophomore quarterback, Caden Shindone, he was a standout all night. Here he is bombing on him. He's going to go up top, 74 yards to Carson Lang just before the half. This was a game changer as Rodgers finishes. We'll finish it off here in a minute. The Vikings are going to road a 2-0. Colts dip to 0-2. Gentlemen, just your thoughts on this outcome.
Sit well with Dave Carroll and his crew down there. Those guys are defensive-minded guys, and to give up big plays like that, I'm sure that Dave and his brother are none too pleased about that.
Yeah, they had the troops fired up before the game last night. Not really sure what happened for Clear Fork on senior night, but they did not come out with the W. I think River Valley, though, pretty good team. First game for the Ashland Arrows on the new turf, hosting Mount Vernon and Gavin Moyer. 45-yard touchdown grab. He had a couple of those last week. So he's got things going for the Jackets. Ensuing drive, though, here's Ethan Hartley. A 1-yard touchdown run, and the Arrows are going to take the early lead. Later on, he's going to escape some pressure, roll out to the left side, and this 4-yard touchdown scamper is going to make it 20-6 in favor of Ashland. And we will pump things up now to the third quarter where Declan Rohr finds Landon McFedrick, and watch this snag. One hand is all he needs. 36 yards into the end zone. We'll switch things up, go with some trickery here. Double pass are going to end the highlight. Arrows roll, though, boys. 39-6. Look fantastic.
It almost didn't look like Ashland there. I saw a highlight with the Ashland quarterback underneath center, and I thought maybe you'd gotten the wrong thing. They don't run an offense underneath center very often. This is more traditional, or what we're used to ever since, Taylor Housewright in about 2007. So they're back to doing what they do well.
Here's Lucas at Ontario. Cubs always seem to develop stud running backs there. Could be the next great one. It's Grant Barrett, the junior. He had 162 yards and 4 touchdowns. Cubs were up 14-0, but Ethan Snyder leading his program back. You see the 5-yard touchdown run, then just before the half finds Griffin Shaver. 24 yards, he goes in, and we are tied at 14. Then third quarter, Barrett into the zone again. The game was tied at 21 apiece, 6 seconds left, and Barrett is going to win the game for the Cubs at the Horn. Can't believe it, but they are off to a 2-0 start in the MOAC, 28-21.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I'll tell you what, for them to come in the league and do it the way they're doing it, which means ground and pound, and then being able to stop offenses that want to throw the football, very impressive by the Cubs.
Our featured matchup last night saw East Knox and stud Ian Tuller have a monster night in this rivalry showdown against Northmore. He had a touchdown run that you saw earlier that put the Dogs on top, and then he was causing some havoc on the defensive side of the ball, and the coaching staff, look, they enjoy it. Erik, you have a few of those moments in your career on the sideline?
Oh, yeah, man, getting his guys juiced up, man. That's the only way to play football is with a little bit of passion.
Here's Tuller now in the passing game, as this would set up East Knox for their second score, and they would go on to shut out the Knights 13-0. So the Bulldogs picking up where they left off last year, going to the state Final Four.
Yeah, there's something to be said about runs like that and what the carryover effect. And Erik, you know a little bit about that, but it's a real thing.
Finally, we traveled to Arlen Field, where Mansfield Senior was seeking a win in their home opener versus Columbus St. Francis de Sales. Shout out to Three Brothers Productions for the aerial coverage. And shout out for the Tigers blocking the field goal. This is right before halftime. Miles Bradley rumbles back. It is going to be 6-0 Senior High at the half. And then Quintel Quinn. You got to learn the name on the ground here. He carried the rock 15 times, scored twice. Mansfield tried to stay in the game, as you're going to see Bradley make it 21-12 with this scoring grab coming up right here. But just too much Stallions, boys.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Curt and I both covered this game. What we saw was basically the same thing. Senior High's defense is actually pretty good. Their offense put them in a lot of bad situations. I think a lot of water up against that dam, and then when that levee broke, it was all over in the second half.
Yeah, you could see Senior High defense just getting worn down in the second half. They were on the field for a real long time, and Quintel Quinn is all of 6'1" and 220 pounds, and that's not a lot of fun to tackle when you've been out on the field all night.
Well, gentlemen, since you guys were both at that game, both covered it, give me some more impressions of the Tigers now that dipping to 0-2 after the amazing season they had last year.
You know, I talked to Chioke Bradley afterwards, and, you know, there's no moral victories at this time, but, I mean, they're a lot better football team this week than they were last week, especially defensively. I mean, that defense is it's not bad, but you just can't be. They were playing on the shadow of their own goal line all night, which certainly didn't help things. And talking to Sales' coach afterwards, he said, for as big of a rebuild as it is right now at senior high, he said we're scared to death to play that team because, and you saw it there at the end of the first half. It's a 0-0 game. You have one little breakdown. Avion Gross comes in, blocks a field goal attempt, and Miles Bradley takes it back 67 yards. That senior high can hit you real fast with a bunch of athletes. Yeah,
and for me, it was interesting to see the transition from halftime, coming out after half. Senior high having all that momentum, the blocked punt, blocked field goal, the scoop and score. The change came when DeSales went with their second quarterback, the Pantello kid. He was the difference. The kid was electric. I think earlier, we were kind of sitting around here talking. I'm not saying he's Tate Martell, but that's kind of how he looked running around the field. He didn't have to throw the ball because his legs did the work for him. And that change in dynamic, when you got a running quarterback like that, it just changes the way things happen from a structure, from a defensive side. And they really did a good job of formationing Mansfield's defense. They would put trips to the field, and senior high would over-adjust to that at times. And then what they would do is they would latch onto the end, and they would read the 3 technique. And it worked. That's essentially what led down to that first touchdown being scored.
And the second quarterback, the Pintello kid, he really opened things up for Quintel Quinn. I mean, Quintel didn't get things going until after the second quarterback was in there. And then when he got it going, I mean, 15 carries and 175 yards. Those are big chunk plays.
Well, and stats tell the story. Mansfield had 77 total yards, -9 rushing, I believe. There were only, listen to this, here's how good both defenses were in the second half, or bad offense, however you want to look at it. Both teams together combined for, I believe, 81 yards. Mansfield only had 20 yards going into the halftime, but still had a 6-0 lead.
Right.
So that's where the focus should be right now. I mean, Mansfield just got to, the Tigers have to find an offensive identity. And I know that that's the obvious elephant in the room. We all know that. I mean, all you got to do is pick up a paper or look on the internet, and you're going to be able to see pretty quickly that, 77 yards, nobody's more frustrated than the guys in that locker room and the coaches in their office. So I know this week that's what they'll be trying to fix as they get ready for Lexington.
And they do things well. I mean, defensively, obviously, and special teams. I mean, I'd never kick the ball to Avion Gross. I mean, and DeSales did last night for whatever the reason, and Avion would turn those into 40, 50-yard returns, and all of a sudden senior high is playing with a short field. So they are absolutely doing some things well. They just gotta work on that offense a little bit.
And heading into this 2020 season, I think we kind of knew that the veteran teams that had kids that had played a lot of varsity football were going to be ahead of the curve with the no scrimmages until the last week. I guess some teams were able to squeeze them in. So the Tigers, I think, certainly fall into that category of a lot of kids that they're having to replace and just haven't played at the varsity level yet. So these first probably 3-4 weeks for them, it's kind of almost like training camp in a way, if you will, them just getting acclimated to the speed. So I do look for Mansfield to turn it up as the season goes along. The team that really put it on them last week too, West Holmes, destroyed Madison 63-0, and then last year's OCC champion Worcester shut out Lexington 43-0. We do have highlights of that right now on the OS Report if you want to check those out. Those two teams play at Fallis Field next week. Could determine the OCC champion, fellas. What do you think about that matchup in week 3?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's your conference. Well, I'm sure Ashland will have something to say about that here down the road. West Holmes, I think a lot of people may not have known what they had coming back. They had a bunch of guys back. Worcester has got a good thing going right now. I mean, that's going to be a big-time game.
Yeah, I agree. Coach Haas will have Worcester ready to go. That is and just geographically, those two schools know each other. Those communities know each other. And, you came in on Monday and said, listen, I'm telling you, there was a lot of talk about how good West Holmes was going to be, and they've definitely opened my eyes. I can tell you that. And the thing is, they throw the ball all over the yard, man. I mean, they've got some guys out there that can flat out play. So there's no doubt that they kind of came from the shadows, but they're definitely out in the light now.
All right, I want to get your guys' take on Owen Fisher now because, I mean, there are awesome games and then there are uncommon games like what you never see what Owen Fisher did. Only 15 carries to get over those 400 yards, the 7 touchdowns, one of those on a punt return. I mean, how do you take all that information and categorize it? Like, what did we see from Owen Fisher on Friday night?
Well, I look at it as almost like a volcano waiting to erupt. He was, I know the type of competitor that Owen is. I know the type of leader that he is. And I know that it was stewing all week for him, the level of frustration that you know, he wasn't able to have that week one that he wanted. And you understand, this is his senior year. I mean, you know, you got a reduced amount of games. And, you know, you win, so you don't ever want to, you know, don't ever take away from the team win. Mm-hmm. But you realize there are also some personal things going on that you want to get done and you want to get accomplished. And I think that there's a couple different stories to this. One, Shelby's offensive line had an entire week to work as a cohesive unit. They had an injury leading up to the Ontario game, and that group hadn't been together playing in those positions. So they got that ironed out. And then I think that there was a lot of Owen Fisher is very well respected and very well liked. And I you know, I guess you could say, pardon my French, but you know, I think the players were thinking, I'll be damned if this is going to happen 2 weeks in a row.
Sure.
And so I think that they were making sure that Owen had one of those nights to remember. And not only that, 126 years, 407 yards, almost 500 all-purpose yards. Those are state caliber numbers that get you a state player of the week.
And all chunk plays, though. It wasn't like they handed it to him 40 times and they just worked him all night. Every time he touched the ball, he was getting loose into the secondary and going in for touchdowns. It was crazy.
I was sitting at lunch and I saw those numbers and I got my phone out to see my calculator. 27 yards a carry. I mean, I looked at it and I thought, well, my phone's broken. You know, I mean, 27 yards a carry. That's unheard of. I was kind of wondering how many 1,000-yard rushers there'd be in a 6-game schedule, you know. I didn't think there'd be many. Well, 400 in one night, that puts you in a pretty good spot.
Right. Yeah, it'll you know, here's the thing. He was going after, well, not only the individual season before the COVID hit and you got 6 games, but also the career rushing record. I mean, those two things were legitimately in his sights. So it'll be interesting to see how those numbers play out as well. But knowing him the way that I do, he just wants to win football games. Right. I know that. He's going to be very appreciative of all this, but he understands that offensive line, the play call, all of those things have to, you know, they have to work together. That, you know, nights like that don't just happen. I could imagine it's like, you know, Kobe Bryant going for 81. The hoop's this big. You know what I mean? Everything you throw up goes in. I'm sure he was running behind that line and thinking, wow, when he got out in the open field, we get to that second level, we know he knows how to score.
Right.
I wanted to touch again on the River Valley Clear Fork game just because I got to call that one and see the Vikings personally, and I thought they're awesome. They got a sophomore quarterback who super poised. He did a post-game interview with us, and I just like his moxie, just everything about him. But then they got a bunch of seniors around him, guys like Graham and Bell and Johnson, and you see Langford in the long passing game. I think they're going to be a sneaky team in the MOAC that might be competing for the championship. But Clear Fork dipped into 0-2, and we do have a question here on the internet from our own Travis Berardi, who's actually going to jump on here with me in a second. And he wants to know, who do you guys think is the best 0-2 team in the area? Any thoughts, opinions, any team stick out to you right now?
I think, and we talked about it earlier, Ontario's right there and Clear Fork's right there. I mean, those are two really good football teams. The good news is they don't have to worry about playing their way into the playoffs.
Right.
Because everyone's in this year.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, both those teams, they're not far off from being 2-0.
Yeah, those two are the obvious two. Ontario, to me, definitely is they're a really good team. I just think they've played two really, really good football teams. I think Mansfield Senior, their defense is not 0-2. And I think that they have the athletes who are just trying to figure out an identity on the offensive side. I agree with you, Brian. I think by the time, if this was a 10-game season, I think Mansfield would look completely different at the end of this season.
Sure thing.
So I'm hoping they get the reps because I like their quarterback. He's tough. Like he's a good-looking ball player. So they'll figure it out. They'll get it going. You know, I trust Chokey and his staff. They'll do the things necessary to get what they need out of this year because I think that I think they're going to be really good going into the 2021 year.
I spoke to Logan Slavinsky before the game last night, senior high's offensive coordinator, and he said, you know, we're replacing 5 offensive linemen, and they had a combined 150 starts or something like that. I mean, and those guys plowing the road. I mean, I think those guys are more important than whoever's carrying the ball. I mean, if you don't have guys who can open up lanes for you, it's going to be a long season. Those guys are still finding their way, and once they do, I would not want to play senior high later in the year.
And going back to what you were talking about with in regards to covering the River Valley game, how good are the quarterbacks in the MOAC?
Legit.
I mean, from top to bottom, I mean, that league is just loaded with quarterbacks. And we know the game today, I mean, the quarterback is the most important position in sports, in my opinion. And just about every team in the MOAC has a really good one.
Let's talk about the Northern 10 here real quick, where Colonel Crawford destroyed Upper Sandusky last night, 54-19, and then Winford took care of Buckeye Central, crushed them too. So those teams are both 2-0. They're going to square off next week. Who do you guys like in that matchup?
You know, I haven't spent as much time studying the Crawford County schools, but I mean, that's as good as it gets over there. I mean, Travis Moyer has done a great job. Ryan Teglovic at Colonel Crawford, he's a South Central graduate.
Right.
I think he is an underrated football coach, and not necessarily underrated, but just people don't know a lot about him because he's, the Richland County school fans don't pay as much attention to the Crawford County schools. But Ryan has done an amazing job at Colonel Crawford. There was a time when Colonel Crawford football wasn't what it is now.
No, I agree. That's going to be a whale of a matchup. And, I mean, I really like Gabe Helbert. I think he does a phenomenal job.
Awesome.
I think Gabe Helbert, and I know this for a fact, Gabe Helbert has had opportunities to pursue other coaching interests, but that's home. That's where he's at. That's his program. I know he's excited about what's going on there. And isn't it crazy how year after year after year, they're always right there at the top, along with Colonel Crawford, and then Seneca East is kind of now dipping into that conversation as well. That's a really, really tough league. But as far as if you were to ask me an early pick, man, I don't know. I might lean towards Winford, but I'll tell you what, it wouldn't surprise. That's truly a coin toss flip.
Yeah, I mean, Gabe has done such a tremendous job. I mean, when Travis left all those years ago, I thought, well, who knows what's going to happen.
Right.
I mean, a coach, of his caliber. But Gabe has stepped in, and he's done a whale of a job over there.
That's a great. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Brian. That's a great place to coach.
Absolutely.
I mean, who was the gentleman that was at Willard, went over to
Chris
Gallion?
Hawkins.
Chris Hawkins, yeah. Chris Hawkins, I mean, he really got Winford rolling.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, Travis came in, and then after Travis, so I mean, this has been, I would actually say, in the area, who's been more consistent over the last 25 years as a school than Winford. I don't know if you can find one.
No, it's certainly not a small school. I mean, they've been doing it over there for a long, long time.
I would say maybe the only other school might be Ashland.
Right,
You
I would
put into
agree.
that category, but Winford every year, man, they're winning. 7 wins is not a good season for them.
But Ashland's Valentine.
Yeah,
I mean that's the thing about it. They've done it through
Scott
3 guys.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And now having said that, I think Cedar's going to. You're seeing this year Ashland's Ashland.
Right.
I like the new helmets too. They had that cool looking logo on the
It's like the new turf, just everything. A good vibe going over there at Community Stadium right now. And a quick shout out to Ryan Teglovic winning his 100th career game.
Cool.
Last
Good
night.
for him.
So,
Congratulations.
way to go. Oh, all-time leader too in the history of the program.
Right.
So hey, welcome to the club. Speaking of clubs, we only have room for one for our top play winner from week 1. And after we shook them all up, we rolled them out to you, the fans at home, and we let you vote and weigh in. Here is the winning play. Wasn't that something? That was pretty good, right? Let's try this one more time. All right, so I think ironically, this didn't even count. This wasn't even a real play, but Nolan Payne's one-handed grab for Ontario is going to earn him the top play from week 1. I know that you saw this with your own eyes, Eric, and when I watched that on the replay, man, it's so obvious. That's a touchdown. The referee needed to get out of his own way, and crazy play there.
Hey, week 1 officials, they're working through their staff as well. To me, that was a legit play. That was awesome.
That's a play of the year candidate right there for a touchdown that never was.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's a week 1 winner, but it's week 2 now, and we have 5 new nominees, so let's go ahead and roll those out for you right now. The top 5 plays of the week brought to you by Spherion, Mid-Ohio. All right, play number 1, Stallion, more like Stallion not going to make this kick. Miles Bradley is going to scoop it up after Avion Gross did his best Dikembe Mutombo impression and saying, no, 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 not in my house. The only thing that he's missing is the finger wag. So he not only blocks the kick, does Avion, but Bradley scoops it up, takes it all the way back to the crib for an easy six, I should say. Pretty sick, Curt.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, those are the things that you just can't coach. That's just athleticism.
Play number 2 takes us to Ashland, where Landon McFrederick looks like he's reaching his hand into the cookie jar with this one-handed snag. Let's see this one more time. Did someone call Professor Gadget? Because he went all go-go Gadget, extendo arm on this play, then waltzing into the end zone like he's on the red carpet. Shout out to my man, G-Man, for writing these scripts for us today. So the arrows at play number 2 here. As we go to play number 3, it's going to send us over to the Colt Corral, where Luke Rogers treated this game more like a track meet than a football contest, running 75 yards quicker than G-Man runs to Taco Bell, and finishing the playoff with a scamper into the big house. I mean, just look at the speed, fellas. I thought this was a high school football game, not NASCAR.
Well, I know this. Clear Fork has speed in their secondary, so for him to be able to pull away from those guys in the secondary, that's showing a pretty good fleet of foot.
Vroom. So River Valley checks in at play number 3 there with Luke Rogers, but play number 4, we're going into the own zone with Ontario's Ethan Snyder delivering airmail to Griffin Shaver, who stumbles and bumbles his way into the end zone, and he finds the promised land. Precision right there, and he gets into the cheddar bank because Shaver got the cheese for 6. Wearing number 6 too. At number 5, this is going to take us to Marion Pleasant, but the only thing pleasant about this game was Owen Fisher. In fact, I didn't even think that this was a football game. I thought that this was a ticket to SeaWorld because it was the Fish show all night long. I didn't know that Fish could walk, let alone run 50 yards like this punt return for a touchdown. Looks like Pleasant didn't get their fishing license before this game because Owen was owning them with this run game. This Fish runs so well, in fact, that he maybe in the history books is the only Fish to have a single game rushing touchdown. Yesterday must have been Lent too because there was just too much free fish. Wow.
The big fish, that's an awful lot of fish puns. Nonetheless, he certainly deserved it.
Yeah, so thank you to Garrett and Storm for those amazing puns there. That was really something. And actually, G-Man and Storm, they wanted to do that segment with us, but we were a little late, always fashionably late here on the OH Report. So they're actually on the road up to Norwalk to take in St. Paul versus Crestview, 2 1-0 teams in the Firelands Conference going head-to-head tonight. We're going to have highlights. We'll have updates for you throughout the game as well, but make sure that you check out those highlights tomorrow. Those are going to be sick. Fellas, last thing. What are your thoughts on that game tonight? I think maybe the winner of that could be the Firelands Conference champion. Who do you like, Crestview or the Flyers, who basically, I mean, they have ran that league for years.
They have. I don't know who's going to win, but I don't think it would take much to convince you to go get in the car and head to Norwalk right now.
I told those guys when they were leaving, I was jealous. I'll tell you what, I'm going with a Crestview win tonight. And I think the Big Red it could be the West Holmes of the Firelands, because I think that they got a lot of talent coming back. I believe they were 7-3 last year. I'm telling you, they're going to make some noise in that Firelands. I think Plymouth, I think the Big Red have a shot, but I do like the Cougars tonight. Yeah,
I think the Cougars are going to be, I mean, that league has been run by St. Paul and to a lesser degree. I mean, back in the day it was Monroeville and Western Reserve a little bit. But it would be nice to see somebody else jump up there and grab a conference championship.
Yeah.
I know the Crestview, I mean, they've been this close to knocking them off, and I just don't think they've done it for quite a while. Maybe you have to go back to like the Mason Minnick years, if you guys remember that name. So
I remember the Ryan Odell years, and that's
just for the 2 guys that are going up there. You know, just it'd be nice for those guys to be able to celebrate with the alma mater tonight.
A couple Crestview boys going up to check out the Crestview Cougs. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining the program. You do a phenomenal job as always, and I'm sure that we'll have you back in for some more Pigskin next week.
Always a pleasure.
Awesome. It's always a great time, man.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, Travis Berardi is going to join the set, and we are going to rock your socks off with the Friday Night Phenoms. Also, a couple of other interactions that me and Travis have prepared right after this. Thanks for keeping it with us here on the Saturday Pigskin, where we are live this year. So like we did last week and like we're doing today, if you have a comment or you got a question that you would like me to handle, Erik will when he's here, Curt, Conrad, or now Travis Berardi, go ahead and send them to us on the Facebook or on the YouTube. Travis, you did the call last night for the Ashland versus Mount Vernon game.
I did.
So just give me your feedback on what you're seeing from Sean Cedar's crew and what you liked about them falling behind early and then coming back and stinging the Jackets.
Just their offense. Declan Rohr and Ethan Hartley, their run game. Declan Rohr, a first-time quarterback. He's a senior this year. He was 5 of 11, 165 yards. He had an interception first drive of the game that led to Mount Vernon's only score. But after that, he calmed down in the running game as well. 14 carries, 71 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 2-point conversion run. But the man that he really impressed me last night was Ethan Hartley. 15 carries, a $162 touchdown on the ground. He had a receiving touchdown and some trickeration late. He had a 52-yard touchdown pass. He was 1 of 1. So the kid could do everything. It's like Boobie Miles. And he can pat, you know. So Ashland really impressed me on the offensive side, and especially defensively. Mount Vernon, they were a solid squad, a solid defensive squad, as we saw last week against Lexington. But their offense, Britton Long, the quarterback, 13 of 19, 151 yards, a touchdown, a 45-yard pass on 3rd and 22 in that first drive to give them the score. And then that was to Gavin Moyer. He had 6 catches, 88 yards, and a touchdown. And then A.J. Keene, their stud running back, 24 carries, 103 yards. The tough thing is, I don't think he's scored a touchdown yet this year, but he's had over 100 yards in both games. So Mount Vernon, they're a solid squad, but Ashland continues to impress.
Well, I'm glad that you brought up Gavin Moyer because he was part of Friday Night Phenoms last week. He was one of the nominees, and guess what? After all the votes were totaled up, Gavin, you are our winner for week 1, so congratulations to that jacket. And I'm told that wasn't even close. Gavin Moyer ran away with that thing for his 2-touchdown performance against Lexington, so kudos to you. And by the way, we are going to get some T-shirts made up for the top play winner and then also the Phenom, so those will be coming very soon. But that was week 1. Let's now look at the nominees for week number 2. Here they are, the Friday Night Phenoms, brought to you by Spherion, Mid-Ohio. Well, I'm not sure if you heard, Travis, but all the Lucas Cubs do is win, 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 no matter what. And it seems like this dude right here was a big reason why on the road at Ontario last night. How about that career night for him?
It's like running back you at Lucas. Every year somebody graduates and Coach Spittler just has a stud that comes in. The sophomore, 4 rushing touchdowns, 162 yards behind that stud offensive line of Lucas. And the Cubs, they're looking like they can make another big run.
Yeah, I really liked what we saw from him last night. And how about scoring the touchdown with just 6 seconds left? So not only was he kind of carrying the load throughout the game, at the end when it mattered the most, he made the big play. I think it was an 8-yard touchdown run to seal the W.
And that says a lot for a sophomore coming in his second career start for the Lucas Cubs, having the mentality to just focus on what needed to be done, getting that touchdown, and giving Lucas another big MOAC victory.
All right, let's go on to our next nominee from our game of the week last night. How about Ian Toller? He just did a little bit of everything, and what I liked most about him is that he was a big-time playmaker not only on offense, but defensively. That dude was disrupting plays in the backfield. I believe he had a couple of tip balls. He was everywhere, Travis.
He's like this, I'm trying to hype him up, but the small school version of a Cade Stover, who could do it, who could do everything. I mean, nobody's probably going to be like Cade Stover from the area, but it just reminds me of Cade Stover because he can do everything on every aspect of the game.
All right, let's move on now to the guy that we are calling simply Q squared here at the OH Report. That's Quintel Quinn of the DeSales Stallions. Dude, he was a nightmare for Mansfield Senior to try to stop last night. He broke into their secondary, and you know that the Tigers got some fast kids. He was able to out-sprint to the end zone a couple of occasions, 175 yards, Trav. Good night.
And he did the same thing to Bishop Watterson in week 1 in a big contest for DeSales. Another big second half, because in the first half, Mansfield Senior pretty much kept him in control, but then he got to the second half, made some adjustments, and he just took over the game.
Yeah, so Quintel Quinn, our nominee number 3. But in my opinion, I think you all are getting it wrong this week. If you don't vote for our last nominee, there's really no question. Let's just give him the award right now. Owen Fisher went absolutely berserk. I have never seen numbers like these in my entire life. 14 carries, and he goes for 412 yards, 7 total touchdowns. Dude, that's just so special.
And I've never heard so many fishing puns in one highlight. Thank
wow.
you, G-Man and Storm. But, I mean, everybody get your polls out, because that is a performance that will be remembered for ages at Shelby High School. And I know Shelby's a big football school. They love their past. They love their history in football. And that will be towards the top of the list for everything that's happened at Shelby.
And then after all those fish puns, when Erik left here, he said he was going to go to a fish fry, said that he was just in the mood. So
it's not a bad idea for dinner.
Big stuff from the big fish last night. Owen Fisher probably is going to be our Friday Night Phenom for week number 2. But hey, that's not for me to decide, folks. At the end of the day, it is all up to you at home. So I'm going to post these individually, the top 5 plays and the Phenoms, and then you weigh in and you comment and you tell me who you think should be worthy of this week's Phenom Award win. Trav, before we close things out, let's go ahead and talk about the games that we have coming up next week that are going to be live and free to all you folks out there on our Facebook and our YouTube. Well, what do we got on the menu?
So 0-2 Lexington at 0-2 Mansfield Senior. Something's got to give. Who's going to come out with victory number 1? Who's going to come out better, and maybe a season-turning victory for one of these two squads?
And maybe some points for Lexington. They've been shut out back-to-back weeks. The Minutemen, they need some smiles out there. Like, let's go, boys. So let's get some TDs.
And that's tough for a younger Lexington squad. Week 1 playing
Mount Vernon,
who has a really stud defensive squad, except, well, Ashland really changed that. And then going against Worcester, I mean, that's a really tough start to the season. We're really going to see these two, Mansfield Senior and this Lexington squad. We're going to see who they really are coming up here in week 3.
Okay. What else we got on the menu?
1-1 Galleon at 0-2 Clear Fork. Can the Colts finally get off the schneid, or can Galleon ride that momentum from their victory over Harding on Friday? Our next game, Western Reserve at Crestview.
Okay.
If Crestview comes out with the victory against St. Paul tonight, they're going against Western Reserve, who won the conference last year. They can beat them. They're in the driver's seat, and possibly to maybe a 5-0 matchup with 5-0 Plymouth. How about that for a Week 6 matchup? Those two teams playing for the conference championship, so we'll see about that. And then our final game, where I will be at, is Cardington at 1-1 Northmore. Golden Knights' valiant effort at East Knox last night in the game of the week. We'll see if they can bounce back on their home turf.
And we always keep it open, where we do 2 highlights every single week, where we send G-Man and Storm out, and then also our guy Carson Kennedy. So I'm kind of thinking that maybe the Crawford-Winford game is going to be worthy of a highlight, and then we'll kick it around and then maybe see what the other game's going to be. I
mean, we have Shelby Harding, and we also have Lucas Pleasant. So there's a lot of opportunities this week for some good highlights. But hey, you got to keep it here at the OH Report, because we have all the great highlights. The best game in town right here, OH Report.
That's right, buddy. All right, well, we're going to let you get back to your hometown. Travis is about ready to hop on the road and go home to West
country
Virginia.
Roads.
So enjoy that. Find you a mountain mama while you're out there, and enjoy the weekend, Trav.
And you enjoy your holiday, Brian. I
will indeed. I hopefully think that you guys all enjoyed today's version of the Saturday Pigskin, and we're going to be back right now, or right next week, I should say. I should say at a different time. Maybe 4 o'clock's not going to work for us. I think we're going to do 5 o'clock, and we'll do it live again. So make sure that you tune it in right here on the OH Report. We will see you then. Peace.